the Dutton opposition must not be sidetracked. I'll come shortly to the Albanese government and Chalmers and their reckless mates. But haven't I been telling you for months that the honeymoon is over? I'll have more to say about that in a moment, but what I will just say for now is there is no future for us as a nation in our attempts to turn all this around by pretending that voting for independents, who are not independent anyway, or voting for Teals is going to achieve anything. The Liberal Party under Dutton is making progress. Dutton is saying a lot of good things. I'll deal with them. But success in life, in sport, in business, in politics, is often about strategy. The opposition, Peter Dutton, have to review their strategy because they're missing one thing, and it's important. They seem to have let the government off the hook on the Higgins affair. Gallagher should be gone, and the opposition should not be letting up. Now, remember Gallagher said on June 4, 2021, 2 years ago, in relation to the Higgins affair, no one had any knowledge of the allegations. How dare you, to Linda Reynolds. But then in June this year, 2 years later, only weeks ago, knowing she had lied, Gallagher to the Parliament then confessed, I was aware of some allegations in the days leading up to Brittany Higgins making those allegations public, unquote. This person, Katie Gallagher, should not be in the Parliament. But let's get back to Higgins. You might remember the allegations of rape inside a government minister's office were used to undermine Prime Minister Morrison, his government and his reputation. That was evidenced by the language Higgins used. She boasted on March 26, 2021, that the then Prime Minister Morrison, quote, is about to be effed over. We've got him, unquote. Rallies, you might remember, were staged in Melbourne, Sydney and Canberra, one outside Parliament House. Union officials were bussed to Canberra. Speeches were made, apologies were offered. It was, as one writer has described, and I quote, an unstoppable onslaught of media stories highlighting the Morrison government's misogyny, unquote. And all of this continued for months, all designed to raise anger and outrage in everyday Australians. The media helped because of the alleged mistreatment of women by the Morrison government. Well, this is where Dutton must get tough. More facts about the case have come to light. As I've said, the reason Albanese and co have backed Gallagher is that they were all in this together. Used the Higgins affair to tip Morrison out of government. This was the issue, they believed, that would destroy Morrison. Suddenly, Albanese's Prime Minister with 32% of the vote. One of the first things he did was to compensate Higgins with a confidential payment reportedly worth up to $3 million. Gallagher has admitted she was a close friend of the boyfriend of Higgins. But she wants you to believe that she wasn't involved in the compensation payment. But as I've said many times, Gallagher was the minister who signs all the checks. What Dutton and his team have to understand is that the Albanese government wants no more questions on this, but the public want answers. For example, we now learn that crucial closed-circuit TV depicting Learmonth and Higgins on the night she alleges she was raped has been automatically wiped off the Parliament House servers. And in the defamation case that Learmonth has brought against Network 10 and the journalist Lisa Wilkinson, documents from numerous parties were subpoenaed and produced to the court yesterday. One included details of a book deal for Miss Higgins, understood to be worth more than $325,000. There's good money in this allegation gig, especially when the allegations are not correct. Newsweekly recently put all this into perspective. The lump sum payable for injuries resulting in death, under Comcare, $617,130.59. I don't know what the 59 cents has got to do with it, plus funeral expenses of $14,062.53. If someone is permanently incapacitated in the employment of the Commonwealth, permanently incapacitated, $220,861.39. For veterans, the Commonwealth liability for the death of an Australian soldier giving his life in a theatre of war, $173,819.34. But only if the Commonwealth accepts liability for the veteran's death. And I can assure you that that poor bugger's family would have to fight like hell to get the $173,000. Higgins, we're told, got the money, somewhere around $3 million for future economic loss, past economic loss, general damages, and future assistance with at-home care and past and future out-of-pocket expenses. The public are saying, what the hell's going on here? Janet Albrechtson, writing recently in The Australian, asserted that Higgins was awarded compensation, as News Weekly puts it, resulting from a claim of 40 years' worth of economic loss and the inability to pursue a political career. Documents obtained by Albrechtson state that Higgins' claim was that she was, quote, medically unfit for any form of employment and has been given a very poor prognosis for future employment. Higgins received $2.5 million in economic loss. But Higgins worked as the media advisor for the First People's Assembly of Victoria, and according to her LinkedIn profile, she was an interim media advisor with the Queensland Human Rights Commission. And God forbid she's been appointed, remember, medically unfit for any form of employment, and a very poor prognosis for future employment. God forbid she's been appointed a visiting fellow at the Australian National University Global Institute for Women's Leadership. Good God. She's posed for pictures outside the UN building in Geneva, announcing that she's, quote, honoured to intern this year at the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, unquote. At the same time as all this business in Canberra was going on, she was completing a degree at Griffith University. Remember, medically unfit for any form of employment. Well, she's enrolled for a Master of Business Administration, a course for people with business ambition. And the three jobs that I outlined, First People's Assembly of Victoria, visiting fellow at the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, and 15-hour weeks with the Queensland Human Rights Commission, all of those she undertook between the alleged rape and her payout. But she claimed she couldn't work at all. Millions of taxpayers' money for, quote, future economic loss, past economic loss, general damages, and future assistance with at-home care and past and future out-of-pocket expenses. Peter Dutton, you can't afford to be sidetracked. This issue needs to be front and centre. Why were Senators Reynolds and Cash excluded from the compensation hearing? How can Attorney General Dreyfus say the government can't provide any further details? The Peter Dutton opposition strategy has to pursue this matter relentlessly through the Parliament. As News Weekly rightly argues, quote, not for retribution, not for tit-for-tat politics, but on behalf of the Australian taxpayer and any Commonwealth employee who seeks a just settlement as a result of injury or death from their public service, unquote. Remember, Higgins has been awarded compensation from a claim of 40 years' worth of economic loss, medically unfit for any form of employment. For veterans, the Commonwealth liability for a member's death, $173,000. Higgins has received something between 2.5 and 3 million. Like The Voice, we're given no detail. And Albanese and Attorney General Dreyfus arrogantly argue we won't get further details. Peter Dutton, you've got to go for broke on this. When you're sick of saying it, the public will start to understand what a sickening betrayal of the taxpayers this whole Higgins charade has become, infested with lies.